Hello guys, it's very nice to see you all here. Hi Kiki, you look very handsome today. Hi Krasi, hi Andre and Adi. Nice lipstick, Adi, by the way. If I miss something, please don't judge me because it is the recording. And today we're going to talk about the bravery and what it means actually to be brave. And I call this Bible talk the Sane bravery. Bravery. Yeah. I'm not going to cut this video much, so please forgive me for mistakes that may happen. Yeah, so the question is for today, what it is to be brave. Why do we call some people brave ones? How do you see the image of a brave person? Like somebody who is courageously standing against his enemies, or who is just really, doesn't care what people think about them, or, the one who is willing to just, go and conquer and fight, probably something like that. But what unites brave people, in my understanding, brave people are those who do something and live for something that is bigger than their life itself. Like, brave people are those who actually change the world around them, and their bravery is based on some convictions that they have, that just they cannot settle with the things that they have in their lives for the moment. And in videos and in movies all over, we see bravery. We see examples of brave people, and they're pretty inspiring for us. Like, for example, the Braveheart, as you remember this episode. And also from Matrix, if you remember Neo fighting for humanity.
Why, Mr. Anderson? Why? Why? Why do you do it? Why? Why get up? Why keep fighting? You believe you're fighting for something, for more than your survival? Can you tell me what it is? Do you even know? Is it freedom or truth? Perhaps peace? Could it be for love? Illusions, Mr. Anderson, vagaries of perception. Temporary constructs of a feeble human intellect trying desperately to justify an existence that is without meaning or purpose. And all of them as artificial as the Matrix itself. Although only a human mind could invent something as insipid as love. You must be able to see it, Mr. Anderson. You must know it by now. You can't win. It's pointless to keep fighting. Why, Mr. Anderson? Why? Why do you persist?
Because I choose to.
So these things, they inspire us. But have you thought, why are they so inspiring? Why do they inspire us so much? I guess that these people, they all have their purpose. They live for something, like their lives have meanings. And that's what is pretty inspiring about brave people, They're fighting for the reason. They have something to live for and to die for, of course. What would you die for? Have you thought of it? Is there some purpose and meaning in your life which is bigger than your life itself? We'll think about it a little bit today. And so, can you call yourselves brave? And what is your bravery looks like? I'd like us to check a couple of stories from the Bible. The first one is written in Daniel chapter 3, verses 14 to 18. This is the story about 3 brave young men that were captured And the king Nebuchadnezzar, he made this order for everybody: when they hear the sounds of musical instruments of any kind, they should just bow down and worship this idol that he built from the gold, this huge statue. And so we'll just read this part. And Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "It is true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego," those are their names, which are weird sounding ones, "that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold they have set up. Not when no. Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music," so basically, yeah, all kinds of musical instrument playing together, that was the sign that they needed to bow down and worship to this idol. So, yeah, he said, "Now when you hear these sounds, if you're ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace." Wow, that is pretty scary, right? Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? Also a challenging question, like, so what God will rescue from me and from my hand? And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into a blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." And that is a really brave answer to the king Nebuchadnezzar. Can you imagine the king says to you, right now, if you don't just bow down and worship this thing I made, which is obviously some idol, something not even alive. So the king says to you, if you do that, if you worship this thing, then you're free to go. Then it's very good. But if you don't worship this, you will be thrown into a blazing furnace, into the fire, which is pretty scary because the furnace, I guess, was somewhere around there, and they could see it even, probably. And they said no. And guess what happened next? Yeah, the king ordered to tie them up and to throw them in there, and God rescued them from the furnace. And then it was a great miracle, and of course, then the king himself even changed his mind totally and said, like, whoever says something against God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the one will be destroyed and erased completely from the nation. But still, if we come back to their answer, they said, the God is able to do that, and they were sure about this. And they said, but even if he does not. So they had this option in their heads that God may not save them from this fire. And can you imagine the bravery when you understand that you will be thrown right now into this fire and God may not save you from it, and you're gonna die. So they basically were willing to die. Why were they so brave? They just wanted to be loyal to God, and their lives even did not matter that much. You know, when there was the question, worshipping idol and betraying God, they just refused to do that, knowing that they might die. And otherwise, they could have done otherwise. They could have said, okay, King Nebuchadnezzar, we will worship the idol right now, kneel down and worship the idol, and what would happen next? Nothing, I guess. They would be let go. I mean, we would not read the story in the Bible right now about them, but they would return to their lives. They would probably keep living their regular lives, and maybe they would live long, maybe not so long, I don't know. They would have their own worries, they would have their own families, children, and in the end, what would happen? They would die anyway, of course, because everybody dies in the end. But what would be the point of their lives? Wouldn't their lives just be wasted? It is very interesting, when you still have life ahead of you, you somehow value it very much, and it is so scary to do something right now that could actually harm your future. But in the future, as I heard many people on when they were dying, their biggest regret was that they wasted their life for nothing. So these three men, they could have go and live their lives, but what's the point? Their lives would be meaningless, pointless. And then this act of bravery, it has changed a lot of things then in Babylon, and the king's opinion, and we can read further, and you can read yourselves about the king Nebuchadnezzar. It is not the only story about him in the Bible, but still, yeah, like our lives can be used the way we want, and they can be either wasted for nothing and we would still die in the end, or we would try to do something meaningful, but that would definitely require some bravery. Well, for example, I have my phone. What can I do with my phone? I have an idea what to do with my phone. My phone can be a great opener for beer, for example, right? I can try to open beer with my phone. Nope. Not like that. Maybe like this. Yeah. Okay. I almost opened the beer. I could open it, but I would damage my phone, definitely. But really, the phone can be the opener for the beer, right? But what's the point? It was not made for this, right? It should serve his purposes. You should connect with people using your phone. You should, do whatever. But yeah, opening beers is not the phone's purpose, right? And so we can just waste our phones and waste our lives also doing the things we were not meant to do. And another brave man in the Bible, of course, was Jesus. I'd like us to read Matthew chapter 16, verses 21 through 23. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Pretty rough answer to Peter, but actually, if we just try to understand what Jesus understood back then about his future, he knew his path. He knew everything that would happen to him. And so he ahead of time began to explain this to his disciples, that he would be killed in some times. So he understood what is waiting for him, and still he was willing to go down this path. Waiting itself is pretty scary. Now dentists are pretty good, I'd say. But 10 or 15 years ago, whenever I understood that I was going to go to a dentist in some time, every second of the waiting was the torture. really, because dentists were really painful back then. And so, like, even waiting for something painful was painful itself. And can you imagine knowing exactly what would happen to him? Jesus was still willing to go down that path. Isn't this bravery? Isn't this pure bravery, I'd say? Because, people, we may have some hopes, like that this will not happen to us or something, and then we can do these brave things. But Jesus really clearly understood what he was going to do. And guess what? Jesus is calling us to follow him in this way. Isn't this crazy? And isn't this something that requires bravery from us? Like, just a few verses down there, in the same chapter of Matthew 16, 24 through 26, Jesus said, like right after his answer to Peter, he said, then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul?" To be a Christian is a pretty brave choice. But the question arises then, is it worth it? Is it worth being a Christian? I'd say totally. It's worth every day. Because it is just something bigger than the life itself. Christianity is not even about this life and about this world. Following Jesus would mean following him forever and wherever he goes. And as we know, after he died, he then rose and then came to Father. And Jesus promised that he would take us with him to his Father. So it is more of a question of eternity, not even this daily life that we have here. And to follow Jesus is the opportunity for us to not have meaningless lives, not to live in vain, not to just waste time and air living on this earth, but actually to do something bigger and to live for something bigger than life itself. And that, of course, requires some bravery. If you're willing to stand on this path, that would mean that you would need to actually follow Jesus. That would mean that you would need to die at some point. But for Christian, dying means dying for our old selves, means dying for our old habits, for the past, for who we used to be, and following God, trying to live by his words and his will would be something more important than our will in our lives. And his will is good, of course, and he's very loving to us. But this first step, it really requires some bravery from us. So the question for each of us today is, where in your life do you need bravery to follow Jesus? In what area do you need to make this first step, following Jesus? That requires your bravery. So I'd like us to stay with this question and discuss it a little bit now live through Zoom. So these are my thoughts, not even my thoughts, I guess, the biblical thoughts. So we can now start the discussion. Thank you very much for listening.